The end of the year is finally here, and it's time to dive into my top 10 favorite films of 2021. This has been a pretty damn good year for movies, and after coming off last year, I'm just happy that I had so many movies to pick from. This was a very hard top 10 list to go with, but I went with my gut, and maybe you'll disagree with me, and that's completely fine because film is completely subjective, so make sure to leave a comment on what your top 10 favorite films were from 2021. I can't wait to read those and reply back and have a great conversation with you. As well, if this is your first time coming here, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep talking movies over here all the way through 2022. It's a bigger year next year for movies. We got a lot of great ones, and I will have a most anticipated film list up very soon. But with that all said, it's time to dive into those top 10 movies right now. Coming down at my number 10 is a movie that I expected to really like, but also just in general love the performance, and in fact, I ended up loving the entire thing, and that is Spencer. I have never seen Jackie. I've been really interested to check it out now after seeing this because what I love with Pablo's direction in here is the way that he framed this movie as a horror film overall, and I love me some horror, and I understand that this movie is not technically for everyone. Some people wanted a more straightforward biopic. Some people didn't believe Kristen Stewart was Princess Diana, and in general, the movie just didn't work for everyone, and that's completely fine, but I loved it. I loved the direction they went in. I don't love the typical biopics. I get so exhausted seeing after year we get so many of the same type of genres and nothing's ever done differently, but with here we get something that's so different within Spencer. I'm not just saying this because Kristen Stewart was absolutely phenomenal in this film, and she should absolutely win Best Actress. I mean, her performance is absolutely transformative. She completely embodied Princess Diana, and the Princess Diana that I knew from watching my mom be obsessed with her. Even adding in there, the thing that I love about this is it doesn't hold your hand. If you don't know who Princess Diana is, you might be a little bit lost, but if you do, there's a lot more depth in here because what this movie does is dive into the psychiatric nature of what Princess Diana is feeling and going through during this devastating time after her husband potentially cheated. She's doing Christmas with her crazy family that she might not love, the royal family, and everything is expected for her to be perfect. The media can't see anything. She feels trapped. She feels like a prisoner, and you feel like a prisoner as well. I haven't felt this engaged with a character study in such a while, and again, Kristen Stewart is so phenomenal here, but Pablo's direction is one of the strongest feats of this entire year, and I loved what he was able to do with Spencer. And now coming out my number 9 is one of my favorite films from the entire year. It has never left my top 10, and that is Mass. One of the more underrated movies as well. That was also on my top 10 most underrated films list that I posted already. This stars the likes of Jason Isaacs, Martha Plimpton, Reed Birney, and of course Ann Dowd, and is directed and written by Franz Kranz, the hippie from Cabin in the Woods. I love saying that because it's just cool to see that this is now what he has created. A movie about two set of parents coming together with one another to reconcile after one set of the parents, their kid was killed in the school shooting, and the other set of the parents, well, their son was the school shooter. A lot of depth, darkness, and a lot to be said while watching this movie, and it's not one of those movies that just bangs you over the head about gun reform and stuff like that. No, this is just an important film to maybe help others come past the grieving process, but also understand why this is such a serious issue. And I loved Mass. This character study of all four of them was fantastic. The performances absolutely lead this, and what Franz Kranz was able to do with just four people in one room having a discussion and absolutely keeping you engaged and making you feel like you're a fly on the wall, it is one of the most unique experiences that I felt watching a film this year. It's one of the movies that I've gone back continuously, even though it rips my heart out. The performances once again are fantastic, and I love what Martha Plimpton was able to do in here because I've been a major fan of her for years. Really enough, please, the Oscars, listen, give this film some damn support. It deserves it. And at my number 8, it is Licorice Pizza, PTA's brand new written and directed movie, the man behind Phantom Thread, Boogie Nights, and all sorts of grand movies. And the thing is with Phantom Thread, I wasn't the biggest fan of that movie when it came out, and I still really am not, but PTA for me is one of those directors that when he has a film in theaters, I have to go see it, and thankfully Licorice Pizza, while I didn't love the trailers, hit the mark for me in such a way with its coming-of-age story, bordering on the lines of teenager coming of age, where you see that also that awkward stage of when you're a young adult maybe not knowing what your next piece of life or purpose is and always getting knocked down. Those two separate coming of age stories really much come together for this unique bond that I liked. And I know not everyone is in love with this movie. Some people think it's too meandering. Some people don't love the age difference, and it might bother other people. And even there are some racial things in here that I don't even think were needed. But for me, in general, the thing that really latched onto me was the story here, the performances, PTA's direction, and just in general bringing to life LA in the 1970s. This is something that I love, this certain period of piece, dealing with all these avenues and seeing what these characters were supposed to go through. The soundtrack is clearly phenomenal, but for me, the big clear winner of this were the two main performances from Cooper Hoffman and, of course, Alana Haim, who I thought was incredible in this as well. Thomas Anderson can honestly do no wrong unless it's Phantom Thread, a movie that I wish I could love, but Licorice Pizza had it all up there for me, and I really loved this film. In the end of the day, I think this will end up being one of the most quintessential coming-of-age stories that everyone needs to watch. And coming down at my number 7 is one of the most surprising films of the entire year for me, and that is The Mitchells vs. the Machines. Originally called Connected and was supposed to hit theaters, Sony ended up sending this one over to Netflix, and it kind of broke my heart because I hate when these movies are pivoted towards streaming services, but the thing that I must give credit where credit is due is I started to get a lot more excited as I heard the cast, the crew, and finding out this is from the same creators as Spider-Verse, which was one of my favorite films of that year. In fact, the more I think about it, that actually was my favorite film from the year the Spider-Verse had come out. Mitchells vs. the Machines for quite a while was actually my favorite movie of 2021, until, the back half of the year came and a lot more movies came up to be. But I loved this film, not just because of the unique animation that is developed inside of here, but also because of the grand emotional storytelling that they're able to tell. It's father-daughter relationship that is placed inside of here. Seeing two different ideologies, two different viewpoints, and seeing how that maybe comes to be. I feel like parents actually have this happen to them a lot, and even us as kids, we don't sometimes view what our parents want best for us or what they are truly needing. Well, weaved into there, the other supporting characters are great. This entire family road trip is also taking place during a robotic apocalypse, also adds the fun vibes of Terminator to this all. Vivid animation with a beautiful soundtrack, with an amazing story that also really much rips out the guts in the emotion, but also making you so emotional throughout the entire thing, and huge laughs. I loved The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and this absolutely had to be in my top 10. Coming down at my number 6 is a film that I feel like a lot of people either hate, love, or just thought it was okay, and I'm in the category of loving this film, and that is Don't Look Up. You can't go wrong when you have Jennifer Lawrence and Leonardo DiCaprio leading the movie, with the likes of Meryl Streep, Jonah Hill, and Adam McKay directing and writing this movie. And it is a film that is a giant satire on everything going on in our world, and I loved it. It made me smile, it made me laugh out loud, and while the film is way too damn long, I still think it's perfect in my eyes because it gave me some of the biggest laughs and honestly some of the most fun I've had, but also some of the most dark, dense, and thought-provoking times throughout this entire year when watching a movie. The film can mix itself from going to this fun, lighthearted kind of satire towards our entire world to all of a sudden that world is ending and you're having to really much give in a lot of emotional avenues and this humble kind of start from some of the performances. It is something special here. And I really love how this is kind of a wake-up call for a lot of us who are watching this. And I do also love that it tackles all sides of politics and viewpoints. And because that's what makes it fun, is that we can all just make fun of ourselves. A movie that is deep, it's funny, it attacks every single sense of your sensibilities and your thoughts and your viewpoints, but at the center of it all, the last 30 minutes is some of the most emotional parts of 2021, and I loved it. The way that it was able to bring about all this hilarious avenues, but center it into an emotional story about what do you do when no one listens and the end of the world is coming. That emotional avenue that really did hook me by the end of the movie, but even with that said, I thought this movie was absolutely hilarious, and I have seen it 3 times now. Even though it is a damn long movie, I have such a blast. And Leonardo DiCaprio, man, such an all-star. I loved him in this. Guys, now we're heading into my top 5 favorite films of 2021, and make sure I need to hear your guys' thoughts. What are your thoughts so far on my list? What is your guys' ranking? What is your top 10? Let's hear about it down below in the comment section, but you guys know, I of course had to have some honorable mentions, so let's dive into those right now. And going to my letterbox, so if you want to see my entire ranking, I am going to be doing a live stream of me ranking every film from worst to best that I've seen. I've seen 197 new movies, so let's dive into this right now. Coming down some honorable mentions, Zack Snyder's Justice League, A Quiet Place Part 2, In the Heights, King Richard, Come On, Come On, West Side Story, Eternals, Belfast, The Power of the Dog, Demon Slayer Mugen Train, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Titan, Shiva Baby, Raya and the Last Dragon, and Saint Maud. Honestly, with those said, I could have easily slid any of these into my top 10, but this was such a great year for movies, and this is again why I love the movies.
I love movies. Gosh, I love movies. I love watching them, and I love making them.
Coming down at my number 5 now is, of course, Daniel Craig's final outing as James Bond, and that is No Time to Die. Man, did it hit me in the emotional. It finally hit me by the end of the film that, damn, this is seriously Daniel Craig's final outing as James Bond, and I loved every single moment of it. It isn't just one of my favorite James Bond films, might be my second favorite Daniel Craig James Bond film of all time. Doubling down and bringing about everything that we've loved from Daniel Craig, but exploring and expanding his character to that next level. Ray Fukunagawa's directing in here is absolutely stellar and amazing in the way that he was able to mix VFX and practical sets and always combining it and really much giving us that adventure that we've wanted to see from James Bond and as a conclusive nature. Because in a sense, when you look at all the James Bond movies up to this point, this is the first one that actually feels conclusive to its entire story and runtime. Ties up any loose ends, any other character moments you needed, and for me, Daniel Craig absolutely gives one of the best performances in 2021. He came to play as James Bond himself, and it absolutely put a big smile on my face while also making me emotional. Leia is also incredible in here, and I thought she was phenomenal as well with their pairing with Daniel Craig, and everything that what this movie did is it actually made me appreciate more of Spectre, which is a movie that I don't love. I like it, it's fine, but it made me appreciate certain avenues in there and the way that it was able to be a sequel to that, as well as a sequel and a finale to the entire Daniel Craig run as James Bond. Love what No Time to Die was able to do, and seriously enough, this is one of my favorite films of 2021. At my number 4 is a brand new Christmas movie, and that is The Green Knight. Not your typical Christmas movie, but it is a Christmas movie in its own way, and this is one that I've been so excited for. I remember when it first was announced, it was going to South by Southwest. I was supposed to attend the premiere of that. Then COVID happened, and it was a long wait, and thankfully, it actually sounds like that long wait helped the film because he was able to go back and re-edit a lot of what was in this film, which shout out to David Lowery, because I think what he was able to accomplish with The Green Knight is one of the most unique films of this year. It's not your typical Green Knight story that it feels like the trailers are trying to be. It definitely is more of a David Lowery movie, but it's my favorite David Lowery film yet. The way that it tackles thematics of toxic masculinity and sorts of things like that, and depression, anxiety, and what we think of ourselves with that courageous nature of it. There's so many themes and messages running throughout The Green Knight that I loved. Not even to speak about enough about the performances with Dev Patel, as amazing as he is in here. Alicia Vikander kills it. Barry Keoghan is amazing. And even enough, the cinematography is some of the most gorgeous that we've seen in 2021 as well. You can't forget to talk about the costume design, the score, the way that the story plays out, and just in general, the prosthetics on the Green Knight himself. I absolutely loved this movie. It's one that I've gone back to constantly throughout this movie, and one that completely runs throughout my mind. I can't wait to show more of my friends and family this one. It might not be for everyone, but it was enough for me to absolutely love it all and exceed my expectations. And at my number 3 was one of my most anticipated films of the year, and it absolutely hit the mark for me, and that is The Suicide Squad. James Gunn's Suicide Squad is here, and it came to play, and it breaks my heart that this movie did not do great in the box office, because it absolutely should. I loved this movie. This is one of my favorite comic book films of all time now. I say that because I'm that crazy guy that saw this movie like 10 times in theaters, and that doesn't even count as how many times I watched it on HBO Max. It was my comfort movie for this year, the movie that I could just go to, watch, laugh, have fun, but completely be embodied with emotionally with all the characters enwrapped in this story. Whether it's all the characters that you get to interact with, whether it's King Shark, Ratcatcher, Bloodsport, Peacemaker, and many more, of course, even the Harley Quinn. You felt the deaths, you felt the emotion going throughout here. It's a bloody romp ride that is hilarious from top to bottom, but again, at the center of it all, what I love about James Gunn's films is the way that he's not able to just give performances that are fantastic, amazing visual effects and prosthetics and all sorts of things like that working in wonders, and go bonkers and crazy with a giant killer starfish attacking everything. at the center of it all, he's still able to bring an emotional film that makes you feel for all of these crazy and wacky characters, and that's why I love the Suicide Squad. And now at my number 2, we have Denis Villeneuve's Dune. I went all the way to New York to see this thing a month early, and it was completely worth it to attend the New York Film Festival premiere of this. It absolutely exceeded my expectations from what I love from the novel and brought more to it. I actually hope that we actually get an extended version of this movie like we did with the Lord of the Rings series, because I need it, hearing about all the different scenes that had to be cut for the runtime. But even then, I thought this movie moved at such a brisk pace, bringing to life this world of Dune, the sand, the characters. Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, is one of my favorite performances of the year. Lady Jessica, played by Rebecca Ferguson, was one of my favorite supporting performances of the year. I'm still in contention. She should be nominated. But alongside that, what Denis Villeneuve was able to bring was not just bring his directing style that again is more subdued, but also not really much for the entire pop culture nature, but he was able to make a blockbuster, an art house blockbuster on such a mega scale that was an emotional, badass, and such a thrilling ride that made me just go, by the second it ended, going, I need more. And one of the last times I ever felt that watching a giant sci-fi fantasy blockbuster like this was the ending of The Fellowship of the Ring, where you see them going, and then it just ends, and you're like, I need the Two Towers right now, and then thankfully I was able to put it in, because that's how, when I watched it finally. But with Dune, we have 2023, that's when we're getting the next Dune film, and I can't wait. Also, shout out to Jason Momoa in here, because he's fantastic, and I cannot forget to mention Hans Zimmer's score, one of his best and one of my favorite Hans Zimmer scores of all time. Can't stop talking about Dune. I freaking love Dune, and all of you, if you didn't feel the same, I get it, but I also feel like you're missing out on something because I love this movie. Now at my number 1, this is a total nostalgic kick for me, and there might be some spoilers for here, so if you haven't seen this movie yet, I'm sorry, spoilers are everywhere. It is Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, I went back and forth with what was going to be my favorite film of the year. Was it going to be Doom? Was it going to be No Way Home? And I ended up going with No Way Home because of what this film made me feel watching the movie in its entirety. I know the film's not perfect by any means on a structural level when it comes down to the story. I do feel like the first half is a little bit mixed and not the best overall. It's fun, and I like it, and it's really good, but I don't start loving the movie until the midpoint of this entire film. But the fact that I can say that the midpoint of this film is that damn good and contains some of my favorite Spider-Man elements of all time, but as well as containing my favorite MCU film of all time. I've seen this movie like 7 times, and I can't wait to see it again. If I wasn't as busy right now, I probably would have even seen it more than I saw the Suicide Squad in theaters. This is a film that I loved my audience reaction. Even one of the theaters that I went to where no one was reacting, it was still fun hearing people like whisper to each other and freak out in their own nature. And I loved seeing this with different groups of friends and family and seeing their reaction. My girlfriend, my best friend, my sister, everything of that nature. It was fun to see reactions like that because this is a film that contains those. And again, is it made to kind of just have the Spider-Man all slinging around with one another? Maybe, but it works for those. There is a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of nostalgia in there, but it's just something that tackled me in the right way, that they made this film work for not just the sake of that, but actually contained a gripping, emotional story that invested me and gave me a great conclusion to the Homecoming trilogy, and as well as making me notice that this is a Spider-Man origin story. Not just this movie, but the entire trilogy was Spider-Man's origin story in the MCU, and what a fantastic thing that they did there. I don't know if that was planned from the beginning, but if it was, bravo. I know MCU and Kevin Feige always like plan stuff from way ahead in time, but there's just something special about No Way Home that I loved. I love the final act. I love the emotion. I love where it ended at. I love the suits. I love seeing everyone in this film. And I overall, while again, don't love that first half, I think it's a little bit jumbled and a little bit too fast. I think the film actually needed more time to breathe. I seriously cannot emphasize enough the way that this movie made me feel. The more I think about it, I get giddy, I smile, I get goosebumps, and I just smile with such joy. And if that's what one of the best movies of the year is, again, this is my list. I might not think it's the best made film of 2021, but it was the one that gave me the most joy while watching it and continuing to think about it after I saw it in the theaters. So guys, that is my top 10 best movies of 2021. So many fabulous movies. Look out for more top 10s and rankings coming up pretty soon, as well as many movie reviews for the year 2022. I can't wait to bring you guys all those. And just in general, thank you so much for supporting this channel. If you have been around here for a while, I appreciate it. This is the biggest year that we've had so far. And coming off the pandemic, I was very much just a little bit sad and anxiety hitting me because my goals have not still been hit. I want to do this full time eventually, and I have plans in the works to hopefully do that. Keep supporting, keep sharing, keep liking, keep subscribing, and I'll keep bringing the content, guys. I'm that crazy guy who just loves talking movies, and I don't care. I just want to keep talking movies with all of you guys. So thank you once again for all the support. I really could not do it without you guys, and I love reading your comments. I love seeing your guys' replies, and I love interacting with you guys. It really means the world. I feel at home when I do this. So, didn't mean to get too sappy, but thank you once again, and of course, until next time, until next year, stay classy.